about to get controversial here. I want to talk about tips, meaning tipping people at a restaurant or getting your hair done or any of those type of things. In my opinion, did you hear that? I'm gonna say it again. In my opinion, tips are not mandatory. I don't care where you are. I give out tips when I believe I got great service. If the service was bad, I'm not giving a tip. Why should I be giving people extra money for doing a mediocre or satisfactory job? The other day I saw a post saying, if you can't afford to tip, you can't afford to eat out. That is absolute nonsense. And look, I get the struggle. I understand that there's some points where you don't believe that your job is paying you enough for what you do. The responsibility of you getting paid for should not be up to the customers. If you are not getting paid enough, you need to complain to your manager or find a new job. Listen, as I said before, I like giving tips when I get really great service and if you deserve it. But for those restaurants that are automatically adding tips to the bill, you need to stop. For the people who decide to give you bad service if you don't tip, you are some of the worst people to exist.
Tipping has gotten out of control. You can't go to any place anymore without them asking you for a tip. Now, before, tips were for anything that went above and beyond. Exceptional service. Now, you can't even get a service done without asking a tip. Why should I be paying a tip to my mechanic for an oil change? That's exactly what their job is, and that's exactly what they're paid to do. I know that tipping is basically required in restaurants because restaurants are allowed to underpay their serving staff. But every place else has exploded due to COVID, and now all these point-of-sale machines require or ask for tips. It has gotten out of control. This tipflation needs to stop.
It was something new for me. Usually back in my country, when you go to a restaurant and you buy something, you eat, when you're done, it's a choice. You pay them for the food you eat. It's a choice if you really want to, pay any tips at all to the person who served you. So a situation where you do not want to pay tips, they do not expect it. So when you give them tips, they're very grateful and, it's very appreciated. So when I came to the United States, it's kind of like something new that I had to learn, because then I realized that a lot of people pay for tips and it is expected, and if you don't, I was told that if you don't, you're gonna get a very bad treatment. Like the next time you go to that same restaurant, they're gonna treat you in a really bad, horrible way. They're not gonna appreciate your presence there, and they'll be so mad because they're expecting you to tip them. So what I think about this whole thing is this personal thought and my personal opinion about tips. I understand it's like something that is done. It's more like it's a standard, or what you're supposed to do when you go to a restaurant or any services at all that you receive. That like all these services and stuff. I do believe that your effort and those you should put more effort into telling that company, that restaurant, whatever corporation you're working for, or wherever it is. I don't know what to call it, but I'm just like right now I'm just gonna focus on restaurants. Or maybe other places like, massage, you go for massage or the rest. Why not try to get paid more? Like, why not fix the prices in a normal way for the food that I'm paying, so it can be enough for you to pay that person, that's the staff that you have and you employed. Because I'm not the one that employed that person. If I want to tip you, it should be by choice, not something that I'm being forced to do. It's like I'm the one who employed the person in that situation. I didn't employ you. I didn't hire you. Sorry. I don't know. I didn't hire you. And I think more effort, more force and pressure should be put on them to actually make sure that they know how to maximize the whole thing and put it together. When they give me prices for food, let it be enough for you to actually be able to pay your staffs at the end of the month in an appropriate order. Stop putting pressure on people, because a lot of people go to places, they're even struggling. It's not like they have enough money to even buy and survive and eat in this inflation that we're dealing with, and you're still having to rack up the prices of tips and tell people to pay like 20%. So I think it's something that I'm not used to, like maybe culturally, but it's really ridiculous. And even people who grew up in this place actually complain about it, and it's kind of ridiculous. And to the extent that people will get offended for the fact that you didn't give it to them. What if I just had the money that I had for food to buy it? It's not enough that you have to pay taxes, and at the same time, you still have to pay somebody tip. Like, why are they not paying them properly? I don't understand. What's the problem? Why are they not paying? Why didn't you charge me enough for the food so that you can be able to pay your staffs at the end of the day? and not be individually asking everybody to pay tips. Usually, I think it's totally okay when you pay, like when somebody gives you like good services, you really like them. Because I think in the situation where you're not paying them well, you're not paying the staffs well, and all of them, all they're doing is waiting for they're waiting for tips, right? In that kind of situation, then there are some people that will really not get a lot of enough tips, and they'll really be broke while working in that place. I don't think it's fair. Reason why I don't think it's fair is this: some people have a very great good aura. If you guys have never really realized something about that, I can go to a restaurant when it can even deal with racial stuff, appearance, beauty standards, stuff like that. You know, when you go to a restaurant or you're dealing with all this type of services that you need to pay tips for, there's some people that have good aura. When you see them, you love them. You don't know why. They really didn't do anything special or different from the other person. But of course, you're going to pay them a higher tip. And more people will pay them better tip than the other, which is kind of unfair for the other person who is working there. Is it their fault that they just naturally don't have that good aura that the other person doesn't have? Or is it their fault that this person is white and the other person is black and they're all doing the same work? They're all putting the same effort into their work. So that is why I really think it's kind of like it's kind of biased to me. That's what I think. But you guys watch this video and let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. Make sure you click the like button and subscribe to the channel, and let's get right into it.
So here's how you know that tipping is out of control. I was picking up a breakfast bagel sandwich at this place nearby my house, and as I was paying the check, they asked me to select one of the tipping options, as people do nowadays for everything. And I read the options are going from 25% down to 20%. So normally I think, okay, of all the options that they're putting on the screen, the one all the way on the right side should be normally the lowest. No, it goes from 25% to 20%, then to 10%, and then back up to 15%. Now they're just randomizing the order so that you don't know which one you're actually picking. Like, what?
Tipflation is real. Not only are we getting hit with inflation, it seems like you're being asked to tip everywhere you go. When apps like Square sell their product to companies, one thing they say is when you pay on an iPad and you switch it over, they will feel pressure to pay a tip that you weren't getting before. And this will result in more revenue to you. And we're all feeling that now. So here's a couple instances that you don't need to feel pressured to pay a tip. For somebody working behind the counter, you don't need to pay a tip. If you're eating at a restaurant and gratuity is included, you don't need to add a tip. If you go to an event and there's an open bar and there's a tip jar, you don't have to pay a tip. The host that's taking care of the event has paid for their time and tipped them. Now, in all those instances, you can pay a tip if you want, but you don't need to feel bad by not doing so. For servers or someone whose income is dependent on tip them well. The biggest one, though, that I think is 50-50 is, do you tip a barista? The one that I think I'm landing on now, if you're a local, tip the barista. If not, you don't have to, but actually many do.
The whiter you are, the more likely you are to get a better tip. And every shade darker you are, the more likely you are to lose money in your tips. That shouldn't surprise you though. A country like America that struggles so deeply with race and gender and things of that nature, you know good and well, if you got a racist grandma, you know she's not tipping that black boy or the kid with the nose piercing the same way she's tipping the white kids. It also creates a dangerous power dynamic from the server back to the customer. There was a study that was done that showed that racial profiling over expected tips or lack thereof led servers to be discriminatory and sometimes hostile towards their customers of color. 66% of servers said that they've witnessed a coworker being biased towards their customers of color, and that all comes from the system of tipping. The male tipper, female server power dynamic creates and perpetuates sexual harassment conditions in areas where it doesn't need to. The numbers don't lie. Women in states where the minimum wage is lower and they depend on tips more were 2 times more likely to say that they had to deal with sexual harassment as opposed to women in other states. It also encourages and allows employers to exploit their employees. The restaurant industry has talked about this a bunch. And also, you just don't make as much money off of tips as you would if you had a minimum wage that was keeping up with inflation. It's not a system that's working for us. And it seems like the people that I argue with the most about tipping are the people who would benefit most if we replace the system. It encourages bias, it encourages sexual harassment, and you don't get paid as much as you would if we replaced it. But, Other than that, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln? People shouldn't be working their ass off and then hoping and praying that they can pay their rent based off the kind-heartedness of some stranger to pay for his overpriced burger and then give a little bit more. You're not a beggar. You have a job. You're an employee. That's the grading, right? Your employer should have a business model that allows you to meet your basic needs through this job. And if it doesn't, that's a problem. We should be able to talk about it. I already know some of y'all gonna be in my comments. Joshua told us not to tip. He's a terrible person. And I didn't say that. And you know I didn't say that. But if you want to comment that, make sure to comment it because TikTok can't tell the difference between a good comment and a bad comment. Anyway, how did I do? You guys let me know. I feel like her name is like Jennifer.
Has tipping gotten out of control in the United States? A lot of people seem to think so. We all know how it goes. You go to finish your order at the counter and they turn the tablet around, or you're at the drive-thru and they hold out a little device and you got a couple percentages or dollar amounts, and then you can skip the tip or do a custom amount. The problem is people are being asked to tip in situations where they generally never would have tipped before. I know before I would tip at a restaurant. I might tip at a coffee shop if they're getting slammed and I notice that the workers are busting their ass. I'll tip the guy if he helps me with my luggage at the airport. But people are claiming that they're being asked to tip at like self-serve checkouts now. I know there's been times I've been asked to tip at places where I just order a thing and they grab it from behind the counter and give it to me. And the amounts that we are being asked to tip has gone up drastically. People are calling it tipflation. So not only is the cost of everything going up, but now these businesses want us to increase the amount of money that we're paying their workers rather than them paying their workers more. Let's look at a couple of these comments in this Reddit thread that I was looking at the other day. Tipping is officially out of control. I made an online order the other day at a small health food e-store and was asked to include a 15% tip to go to their fulfillment employees. The one shitty justification for tipping before was waiters and waitresses don't get paid a full minimum wage, they get paid a lesser minimum wage because their income is supplemented by tips. And as fucked up as that is, everybody just kind of accepted in the US that that's how that was. But now we're being asked to tip people that are just paid regular wages. I go to the local donut shop, the guy put 6 donuts in a box for me in the span of about 15 seconds, and the suggested tip area of the checkout screen starts at 25% and goes up to 35%. You have to understand, people aren't mad at the guy doing the work. People aren't mad at the dude for putting the donuts in the box. He doesn't choose what the register says. He didn't set up the tip service. All right, let's look at the next one. I've got a rule about tipping for food service. If I'm sitting at a table and you're taking my order, refilling my drinks, and bringing me my food, you get a tip. If I order/pick up my food at a counter or drive-thru, you get no tip. I feel like that's a pretty common thought process on tipping. Here's a good one. There's another layer of bullshit people aren't talking about. All these systems that allow you to press a button to calculate a tip are tipping the total, not the subtotal. If you're tipping, you shouldn't be tipping on tax. I've not noticed this personally, but that's also because I've not really looked at it. But yeah, this whole situation is just fucked. There's a brewery that opened up in my town. The first thing you see after you walk to the fridge to get the product yourself and walk to pay for it is, hey, do you want to tip 20, 25, or 30%? It infuriates me. So this place has a fridge where you go and get your drink yourself, you take it to the counter, and then you get prompted for a tip after you've gotten your own drink. Here's a tricky one. I went to a restaurant that swipes at the table last night, and the preset choices were 28, 25, and 20%. That threw me for a bit of a loop. How do you guys feel about this tipflation? Because I think it's a bunch of bullshit.
Guys, that's it for this video. Make sure you click the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new here, and you guys leave your thoughts in the comment section. What are your experiences and what are your thoughts about tipping, the tipping culture? What do you think about it? Is it something that I think is very okay, it's very good for you to tip, but when it comes to a situation where it's by force, where it's like it's mandatory, if you don't do it, then the person is gonna like not appreciate you being there or stuff like that, and you already spent a lot of money with the company wherever you were in. So that's just what I have a problem with. So you guys should let me know what are your experiences, and yeah, make sure you subscribe to the channel, as I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.